Stan Marsh is one of the four foul-mouthed main characters in Comedy Central's South Park, and has been a focal point in the show ever since its first episode. His character, personality, and family life were all inspired by co-creator Trey Parker. Stan was originally created as one half of an archetype, where two boys are so close that they're practically the same person. As the show went on, Stan remained close to his super best friend, Kyle, but also developed his own personality traits, values, and hobbies that made him a fully fleshed character of his own. In this video, we're going to take a look at Stan Marsh and how his function in the show has evolved with his changing character.
Stan began the show as a regular kid in a crazy town, and the main thing that separated him from the other boys was his sensitivity. Whether he was mooning over Wendy, reluctant to kill baby bunnies, or ditching a football game to learn about gay rights, Stan has always been the softer, more emotional of the pair, while Kyle was more level-headed and pragmatic. The trait is often portrayed as weak or feminine, but Stan's sensitivity is his greatest asset. He cares about people, and the loyalty and bravery he shows for his inner circle makes him a great friend, particularly to Kyle. On several occasions, Stan goes out of his way to save Kyle from a bad situation, sometimes because his friend is in danger, but mostly because he either misses Kyle or can't stand to watch him suffer. His empathy extends beyond just Kyle, though. Stan is a romantic and dedicates much of his time to his girlfriend, Wendy. Over the course of the show, their relationship has changed a lot, but what stayed the same is Stan's unwavering love and support. Stan has never stood in the way of Wendy's dreams or unconventional decisions, and shows up for her when he'd rather be somewhere else. He doesn't stop outwardly loving Wendy, even when he's mocked by his friends, and similarly to Kyle, goes to extraordinary lengths to keep her. Stan is also an animal lover, and this is his first defining characteristic, as shown in back-to-back episodes in Season 1, Volcano and Big Gay Al's Big Gay Boat Ride. These episodes have similar themes of Stan wrestling with his sensitivity towards animals against how he wants others to perceive him as strong and masculine. At the conclusion of both episodes, Stan decides he can't betray his true ideals, and in the Whale War years, he finds a way to combine being a badass and loving animals. However, this is a problem Stan still struggles with in recent seasons. He's an example of the average red-blooded American kid, so he naturally enjoys sports, is athletic, and wants to be seen as tough.
If Stan's caring nature is his greatest strength, his hyperfixation on popularity and social status is his greatest weakness. To put it simply, Stan cares about how other people see him, and he wants to influence that perception in a positive way, so much so that it sometimes clouds him from his true identity. When Stan does experience great respect and popularity, his ego swells, and he becomes arrogant and overestimates his self-importance. Funnily enough, Stan's dark moments stem from depression and hopelessness, which is the polar opposite of his conceited episodes. Sadly, Stan's loyalty is often not repaid by those closest to him when he is in a dark place, like in Raisins and You're Getting Old. In Raisins, Stan seeks out a friendship with the goth kids because he needs a new friend group to thrive in after his old one abandoned him. Stan is predisposed to depression and addiction, and in these low moments, Stan suffers most in isolation because he values friendship and social activities. Two-parter You're Getting Old and Asperger's shows Stan at his lowest, and his downward spiral worsens after his friends once again abandon him when his bummer attitude becomes too much. Stan is left to slog through his crappy days alone and only finds joy when he begins drinking alcohol. The ending of this storyline is a bleak one. Stan is shown sipping Jack Daniels before leaving for school, implying that in every episode afterward he is a little bit drunk, relying on a substance abuse problem to combat his depression. There is a bit of a silver lining though, in Freemium Isn't Free, when Stan learns an important lesson from Satan about dopamine, addiction, and why he is more susceptible to it than others. Stan inherited his addictive tendencies from his father and grandfather, and his struggle with depression is often not understood by his family. However, the Season 18 episode offers a hopeful narrative by showing Stan beginning to understand how addiction affects him and his family, but more importantly, how he can regain control over it.
Stan is the younger and better version of his father, but he and Randy still share many traits. Both are natural leaders and care about the social status, so a lot of the time, their motivation stems from how they want others to perceive them. Father and son can both get carried away with crazy schemes and are often guided by their own huge egos. However, the big difference between the two is simple. Stan cares about people and doing the right thing, where Randy largely doesn't. Stan is also smarter and more perceptive, which keeps him from taking things too far. It is also Randy's saving grace when he does take things too far and needs to be led back home. Randy is perhaps the person who benefits the most from Stan's help and guidance, especially in recent seasons. For years, Stan's role in South Park was an 8-year-old who had all the quirks and failings of a little boy, but was normal and smart enough to remark at the shockingly stupid actions of the adults in his life. As South Park has grown old enough to vote, drink, and beyond, Stan's character is defined enough to serve as a foil for Randy, who is taken over as the show's main focus. This shift reflects a change in co-creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who once related to Stan and Kyle, but now see themselves more in Randy as they've aged. The show's preference for Randy, their very own weed-smoking Homer Simpson, has caused the four boys to fade into the background. These days, Stan appears the most when he is put opposite his father so he can point out Randy's ridiculous and flawed thinking. Stan excels at this because his brand of humor is sarcastic remarks that he uses as a coping mechanism as the world around him descends into chaos. And thanks to Randy, Cartman, and all the crazy happenings in South Park, it often does. This makes Stan the perfect straight man character. He is as a normal kid as this town can produce, and he spends much of his time reacting to the wacky antics his father and peers get into. Stan's new position in the show is an interesting one because even though he has changed from main character to Randy's son, it shows a depth and maturity Stan never got to explore before. Stan cares deeply about his father, but is often ashamed of his stupidity and selfishness. Where Parker and Stone look at Randy and see a funny reflection of themselves, Stan sees that same reflection and is horrified by the implications of his future.